What's going on, chat? Welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Recon here, and today I'm sticking up for Khamzat Chimaev. With the retirement of John Jones, the Chechen wrestler has quickly become the most controversial champion in the UFC. His detractors claim he's inactive, boring, money-obsessed, and generally not a company man. But do those allegations hold up? Are they valid criticisms of a champion not fulfilling his duties to the promotion and its fans, or is the Khamzat hate downright unfair? That's what we're going to be discussing in today's video, starting with perhaps the most common criticism of the middleweight champion, inactivity. It's ironic because Khamzat initially made a name for himself being an insanely active fighter. His first two fights in the UFC were spaced just 10 days apart. Khamzat won each in devastating fashion, absorbing just one significant strike across both contests. His next fight took place less than 2 months later, a 17-second destruction of Gerald Meerschaert, the man with the most finishes in middleweight history. Khamzat was on a rampage, but it didn't last long. Shortly after the Meerschaert fight, Khamzat contracted a nasty case of COVID-19. What some belittled as the common cold actually became a severe, long-term malady that threatened to end his career. Khamzat, wanting to fulfill his dream of becoming UFC champion, tried training through the virus, but it proved too much. Trying to fight the condition had him coughing up blood and experiencing all sorts of other extreme symptoms. Khamzat had no choice but to take a break from combat to prioritize overcoming an illness so dire he feared it might kill him. Eventually, Khamzat recovered from the virus, but that was far from the end of his health troubles. In June 2024, Khamzat was scheduled to face former champion and number 3 ranked Robert the Reaper Whittaker. This was supposed to be his first ranked matchup at 185, Khamzat's toughest test to date. Just 9 days before the event at UFC Saudi Arabia, Khamzat was forced to pull out due to severe immunological issues that left him hospitalized. Again, the future champion faced a litany of horrible symptoms like migraines, a lung infection, and general malaise. He was violently ill. Fast forward to today, Khamzat won the belt in late August 2025, and his first title defense is yet to be booked. But it sounds like he won't be back in action until April at the earliest. That news had a lot of UFC fans rolling their eyes. Social media was awash with people slamming Khamzat for being inactive and holding up the middleweight division. But hold on. He fought in August. That's not yesterday, but it's not ages ago either. If Khamzat returns in April, that'll be a layoff of 8 months. That's not Joshua Van level activity, but it's not crazy inactive either. By the time UFC 325 rolls around, it'll have been nearly 10 months since Alexander Volkanovski last fought. I know we'd love to see our faves fight more often, but 7, 8, 9, even 10 months between title fights is pretty normal. 8.5 months separated Islam Makhachev's first and second title defenses at lightweight. Max Holloway took over a year off between knocking out Jose Aldo and Brian Ortega. There were nearly 8 months between Pantoja's submissions of the two Kais. What I'm trying to say is, layoffs of this length are pretty normal for UFC champions. So why single out Khamzat? According to him, he'd rather be an active champion, but things keep getting in the way. This time, it was a broken foot in Ramadan. Both understandable, a broken foot is out of his control, and plenty of fighters like Khabib and Ankalaev have refused to fight during the holy month. So again, the singling out of Khamzat definitely feels a bit unfair. But maybe the critics who cry inactivity aren't just referring to his title reign. Maybe they're referring to the entire stretch of time since he started facing top competition. And they would have a point. Since Khamzat began fighting ranked opponents in 2021, he's fought a grand total of just 6 times. That's 1 fight every 8.5 months. Let's see how that compares to some of the other current champions. Over that same period, Peter Yan and Islam Makhachev have fought 8 times, or once every 6.5 months. Alex Volkanovski has fought 7 times, or once every 7.5 months. And Ilia Topuria and Tom Aspinall, like Khamzat, have each fought 6 times. I won't gaslight you into believing Khamzat is some super active fighter, but he's not that far off from other recent and current champs. Ilia and Aspinall are statistically just as inactive. You might say they've had legitimate excuses. Aspinall blew out his knee against Blades, then John Jones gave him the runaround for a year, and now he has eye problems. While Ilia's physical health has held up, he's been sidelined due to personal reasons, namely a divorce and alleged extortion by his ex-wife. But Khamzat has had his fair share of valid excuses also. Multiple spats of violent illness, a broken foot, a torn hand ligament. It's been a bumpy road for Khamzat, and much of the reason for his inactivity is outside of his control. Wanting to see him fight more is totally understandable. His level is undeniable, and we fight fans love to witness greatness. And it's frustrating because Khamzat might be on his way to becoming one of the biggest what-ifs in UFC history. From a purely talent perspective, he has what it takes to be one of the GOATs. But his lack of activity may prevent him from ever becoming one. And that wasted potential leaves a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. I get all of that and sympathize fully. All I ask is that we give Khamzat the same grace we extend to other champions. The next Khamzat criticism I want to discuss is the idea that he's a boring fighter. It's no secret where this comes from. His win over Dricus du Plessis was about 85% lay and pray. Khamzat and his team ultimately played it safe to neutralize a very dangerous opponent and realize their championship aspirations. It's important to note that was a stark contrast from the rest of Khamzat's career. His remaining 8 UFC fights consist of 6 finishes, 5 of them in the first round, and 2 decisions, both of which were thrillers. In other words, the DDP fight was literally the first and only boring fight of Khamzat's UFC career. To call him a boring fighter is incredibly harsh. It also ignores the fact that Khamzat tried to make it a better watch. After banking the 3 rounds he'd need to win a decision, Khamzat asked his corner if he could start striking. They shot him down. Khamzat wanted to test himself on the feet. He wanted to deliver more entertainment for the fans, but his corner, namely Arman Sarukian, repeatedly cautioned him against it.
Вставать, если у тебя все получается. В третьем раунде он мне говорит, а сейчас могу я побоксировать? Я говорю, нет, Хамзат, говорю, у тебя все получается. Сразу видишь, где можно перевести, переводи и контролируй.
So Khamzat is generally entertaining, and even when he hasn't been, it arguably wasn't his fault. Next criticism, that Khamzat is money obsessed. If you don't know what I'm referring to,
I never asked. I said, just give me the fight for the money.
You said that the other day. You said you want the money. The belt doesn't mean as much to you.
I have a question for you, bro. You want a $10 million or just the belt?
Is the title shot, is that what you want next? Or is that what makes sense for you?
I don't care. I'll fight everyone. I come here to take my money and kill everybody. So I'm come here and to beat him up and take my money and go home.
Yeah.
You make so much money and how you can be like that, bro? Give us little bit money, bro.
I know, why?
From the beginning, MMA, it comes MMA, you start the job and you're working there and makes money, but give us little bit, bro.
and I have to be honest, that rubs me the wrong way. I can't quite put my finger on why, but I hate when athletes are openly just chasing a check instead of something bigger like greatness, legacy, or even just the love of the game. Not only does it strike me as distasteful, it can also lead them to do messed up things like scam their own fans through cryptocurrency. Ronaldo has done that, Khabib has done it, and so has Khamzat. I have no defense for that, but will note that Khamzat apparently didn't understand the nature of the project and did later apologize. He hasn't done anything like that since, but the obsession with money continues. Look what he had to say immediately after winning the belt.
Dana, send my money, brother. I'm waiting for that war and that belt.
I know that's a bad look. Not only does it sound greedy, it sounds ungrateful, as he's basically belittling the most coveted prize in MMA, the UFC title. After the event, though, Khamzat explained why the money matters so much to him. Now, don't get me wrong, Khamzat isn't some monk. He hasn't renounced all of his worldly possessions. He still buys the supercars and luxury watches you'd expect him to, but he's also done his fair share of charitable giving. He joined forces with Andrew Tate and Tam Khan to raise over $250,000 for starving children in Yemen. He participated in a charity wrestling match with Mohammed Hijab that raised over $100,000 for emergency aid to Gaza. Khamzat also built a wrestling gym in his hometown and has delivered food to the homeless in Stockholm. The guy has a charitable streak. We should commend him for that. But he better stay true to his word and use his income as champ to help the less fortunate. Okay, on to the fourth and final critique of Khamzat I want to cover in this video, that he's not a company man. The first example that springs to mind is UFC 279. It was there that Khamzat was scheduled to fight Nate Diaz, but missed weight by 7.5 pounds. This caused a major reshuffling of the card, with the UFC booking Diaz to fight Tony Ferguson instead, while Khamzat would face Kevin Holland at a 180-pound catchweight. It's worth noting that this probably made for a better event. Instead of publicly sacrificing two fan favorites, we got to see them face each other in a feel-good novelty fight. But that doesn't let Khamzat off the hook. It was one of the biggest weight misses in UFC history, and he was totally unapologetic.
178 and a half.
It was beyond unprofessional and really sullied his reputation. But consider what Khamzat did next. He didn't insist he could make the weight, then keep missing it as some fighters have done in the past. Some of those guys are fan favorites, by the way, like Charles Oliveira and Yoel Romero. Khamzat didn't follow in their footsteps. Instead, he did the responsible thing and immediately moved up to middleweight, ensuring it would be the only weight miss of his career. That context matters. As bad as UFC 279 was, I don't think it's fair to hold against him nearly 3.5 years later. The other example of Khamzat not being a company man is his supposed refusal to fight Nasruddin Imavov, the clear #1 contender. Except Khamzat hasn't refused a thing. Social media would have you believe otherwise. They latched onto a quote Khamzat gave in an ESPN interview where he said, "If you ask me, I don't want to fight this guy." He then went on to explain that he likes Imavov personally, he's a fellow Muslim, and that Khamzat has no desire to inflame tensions between their two homelands, with Khamzat being from Chechnya and Imavov being Dagestani. That quote brought the Khamzat haters out of the woodwork, and they immediately began accusing the champion of ducking. But that's completely false because just a few moments later in the interview, Khamzat says this.
But if she wants it, so I never gonna say no.
He's not ducking. He said he'll fight anyone. There's just no there. I come at this video with no bias. Khamzat is nowhere near one of my favorite fighters. I don't even particularly like the guy. But just looking at things objectively, I couldn't help but feel that much of the criticism of him is unwarranted or at least overblown. Whatever you think of the man, he deserves a fair shake, just like anyone else. This video was my attempt to give him one. So that's my take. Let me know what you all think in the comments below. Did this video change your view of Khamzat at all? Was there anything I missed? Believe it or not, the original concept for this video was a roast of Khamzat. As you can tell, after researching the topic more, my views shifted pretty radically, but I want to hear from you. As always, please be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy the content. It really helps the channel, and I'm excited to keep connecting with you guys. With that said, meeting adjourned. All right,